What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Commentating Christian YouTube channel. Today, we're going to recap match week 13 in the Premier League. As always, guys, a warm welcome and thank you for coming back to my YouTube channel. I have a lot of fun making these videos. I hope you guys have a lot of fun watching them. But as you know by now, this is the Premier League recap. In this series, I summarize the past match day in the Premier League for those of you that are too busy to watch all the games, watch all the highlights. Basically, I do it for you, divided up into 3 different categories: the mid-card, other smaller results, and the main event, and I summarize it all in one video. So starting off in the mid-card, you guys, as we kick it off with 2 teams that have been punching above their weight class this entire season so far, as Sunderland beat Bournemouth 3-2 in a thrilling victory. Now, this easily could have been the main event, as Sunderland came back from a 2-0 deficit to win 3-2 in the end against Bournemouth. Now, Bournemouth did get off to a hot start as Adley scored in the 7th minute, and then the American midfielder Tyler Adams caught the goalkeeper off his line from nearly the halfway point to score a beautiful goal to make it 2-0, but then Enzo Lafay gave Sunderland hope going into the second half as he drew one back for the Black Cats when he absolutely thrashed in a penalty. The good times kept on rolling for Sunderland in the second half as Bertrand Traore scored in the 46th minute to equalize for Sunderland, and then Brian Brobby scored in the 69th minute, which was the game winner in this game to give Sunderland all 3 points. Now, for those of you that remember, Brobby actually scored off the bench versus Arsenal to salvage Sunderland 1 point just a couple weeks ago, and then this week comes off the bench to give Sunderland all 3 points. Now, a game like this on paper doesn't look to be like the most attractive game in the world, Sunderland versus Bournemouth, but I think this is the exact type of game that goes to show why the Premier League is absolutely the most entertaining and most dominant league in the world. Now, these are 2 teams that no one thought would be competing for European spots at the beginning of the season, but they've proven their naysayers wrong, as both teams put up one of the most entertaining games, not just in the Premier League this past weekend, but in the entire world of football. Now, pouring rain and the atmosphere that the Stadium of Light does provide in the Premier League, one can say this was true Premier League heritage. At the time of recording, Sunderland are still in 6th place in the Premier League, meanwhile Bournemouth slide down to 11. Moving on, as Manchester City required a late stoppage time winner via Phil Foden to give City a 3-2 victory over Leeds. Now, ironically, Foden scored in the 1st minute and the 91st minute of this game. He scored the opener and what would prove to be the winner. Gavardiol doubled the lead for Manchester City in the 25th minute off of a corner kick, but then Leeds would come out swinging in the second half. Dominic Calvert-Lewin scored early on in the second half in the 49th minute to give Leeds some hope, and then Leeds would earn a penalty that was initially saved by Donnarumma in goal, but then the rebound was tapped in by Nmeka to make it 2-2 in the 68th minute. Now, there was 10 minutes of stoppage time added on to this game, but Manchester City only needed 1 to find the game winner via Phil Foden, who danced around the defenders on the edge of the penalty box and then scored home in absolute beauty. Now, with this win, City do go back to 2nd place, only 5 points off league leaders Arsenal, who drew that we will talk about later on in this video. Meanwhile, Leeds United suffer their 4th straight defeat in the Premier League as they finally drop down to the relegation zone in 18th. Moving on to another traditional top 6 side that was given an absolute fight as Spurs could not hold off Fulham as they lost to them 2-1. Fulham did start off hot in this game as they scored 2 goals in the opening 6 minutes via Kenny Tete and then Harry Wilson. They did catch Vicario off of his line to give Fulham a comfortable 2-0 lead. Mohamed Kudus did get a consolation goal in the 59th minute for Tottenham, but it was far little too late as Spurs continued to look uninspiring in the Premier League as they are now 4 games without a win. With this loss, Spurs dropped to 12th in the Premier League, and Fulham, who are only 1 point off of Spurs, sit in 15th. Moving on, as Manchester United came from behind to beat Crystal Palace 2-1. The 3rd top goal scorer in the Premier League, Jean-Philippe Mateta, did put Palace up 1-0 in the 37th minute via the penalty spot, but then in the second half, Joshua Zirkzee equalized in the 54th minute, and then Mason Mount would score a game winner in the 63rd off a beautiful set piece. Now, this must feel good for both Man United's goal scorers in this game, as both Zirkzee and Mount have been played in second choice all season long to the likes of Cunha and Benjamin Šeško. For comparison, only Lisandro Martinez, who just came back from an injury, youngster Andre Haven, and midfielder Kobe Mainoo have less minutes than both of these players in the squad. No doubt a performance like this would give both of them confidence in the next coming weeks. With this win, United climb up to 7th place, and Crystal Palace are currently in 9th. Liverpool also finally got their first win in 30 games in all competitions as they beat relegation-threatened West Ham United. Big summer signing Alexander Isak finally scored his first league goal for Liverpool to give them the lead in the 60th minute, and then later on, Cody Gakpo wrapped things up in the 92nd. Now, Liverpool, despite their inconsistency so far this season, are still in 8th place, only 1 point away from 5th place. Meanwhile, West Ham are still just above the drop zone in 17th. 14. Alright, that was the mid-card bulk of this video. Now we're going to move on to other smaller results before we touch on the main event. Igor Thiago scored 2 goals in Brentford's 3-1 victory over Burnley, as he's now on 11 goals, only 3 behind the Premier League's top goal scorer, Erling Haaland. Pretty comfortable win for Brentford here, as they are currently 10th in the Premier League table. Meanwhile, Burnley dropped to 19th in the relegation zone. Moving on, as Newcastle United absolutely thumped Everton 4-1, thanks to a brace from centre-back Malik Toit, 1 goal from Lewis Miley, and another from the big man up top, Nick Woltemade. Now both teams are tied on points with 18, as they sit 13th and 14th respectively. Aston Villa also beat Wolves 1-0 this past weekend, and honestly I'm a little surprised that Villa were only able to put 1 goal past the worst side in the Premier League thus far. Now that goal did come pretty late on from center midfielder Boubacar Kamara in the 67th minute, as Aston Villa are still sitting in 4th place in the Premier League, and of course Wolverhampton Wanderers are still bottom of the table, only on 2 points, as they've suffered now their 11th loss of the season. Last match and other smaller results, as we move on to another clash between 2 teams that have also been outperforming everyone's expectations so far this season, as Brighton beat Nottingham Forest 2-0. Right back Maxime de Cooper opened the scoring for Brighton, and then Greek striker Stefano Simos sealed the game in the 88th minute. Brighton are now 5th place and Forest are in 16th. Alright, moving on to the main event, as first place battled second place, with Chelsea holding off Arsenal with only 10 men. This game did end 1-1 with nothing to separate the two, but I gotta say, if you're an Arsenal fan, you must be kicking yourself at the fact that you could not put away Chelsea with them only having 10 players on the field. Early on, Chelsea did create a ton of chances, but they were just lacking the finishing touch in the end. But late on in the first half, one of Chelsea's best players, or arguably Chelsea's best players so far this season, Moises Caicedo, saw a red card that would send both teams' plans into disarray. Now, despite Chelsea playing with a man down, they actually found the go-ahead goal in the 48th minute via a set piece, ironically enough, with Trevor Chalobah scoring in the 48th minute. But 10 minutes later, who else but Mikel Merino would get at the end of a cross from Bukayo Saka to draw the game at 1-1. Now, there were a few other smaller chances created by both teams late on in the second half, but ultimately Chelsea were able to hang on to the draw. Now again, if you're Chelsea, this has got to feel like a victory, as you were able to hold off arguably the best team in Europe with only 10 men. But with this draw, Chelsea do drop down to 3rd place, 6 points behind league leaders Arsenal. So that was all 10 matches from match week 13 in the Premier League. Top goal scorers in the Premier League looks like this. Erling Haaland, despite not scoring this past weekend, still in 1st place on 14 goals. Igor Thiago in 2nd with 11, and then Danny Welbeck and Jean-Philippe Mateta each have 7. And we finally have a new leader in the assist chart, as Bruno Fernandes now has 5 assists so far this season. Gotta be said, he gave the easiest assist possible to Mason Mount this past weekend. Granit Xhaka also climbs the assist charts, as he now has 4, as do Grealish, Kudos, and Hartman. So that was it for match week 13 in the Premier League. This upcoming week we have some games midweek and some games on the weekend, as match week 14 will be played from Tuesday up until Thursday, and then match week 15 will take place from Saturday up until Monday. It is getting to that point of the season where teams are playing 2-3 games every week, and this is where depth, health, and rotation play a strong role as who will be the league leaders come the end of the season. As the old saying goes, winter breeds champions. So that's going to do it for the Premier League recap, guys. Thank you for coming back to my YouTube channel. If you're new, consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing, and as always, I'll see you on the next one. God bless.